Jermall Charlo and Brandon Adams for the interim middleweight champ. I always like these heavier weight classes, and the Charlo brothers are hell of super good fighters. And Brandon Adams coming off winning the Contender show. He beat Shane Mosley Jr.
One of the Charlo brothers did get beat, did get knocked off that pedestal.
Yep.
You know.
Agreed.
He lost to
Harrison.
To Tony Harrison.
Yep.
From Detroit. Go ahead.
Yep. So he's fighting Brandon Adams, older kid in boxing years, and he's coming off winning the TV show, The Contender, that I forget what network it aired on, but one of the ones that you had to pay for. And between DAZN, ESPN Plus, and everything, I had reached my limit there, but I did catch some of the replays.
Who's that?
Brandon Adams.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'll tell you what I know, my history of Brandon Adams. He was on, and I'm wondering if you're thinking about this. Back in 2014, he was on my air. I shouldn't say my air. I don't own ESPN. But when I was doing the fights for Friday Night Fights for ESPN, he was on our air back in 2014, Brandon. And he was fighting in a tournament that we did called the Boxino Tournament. Mm-hmm. It was a tournament where over X amount of months, weeks, months, it was a progressive tournament. If you won, you kept going.
Yeah.
And he got, I believe, if my memory, it's a few years ago, but if my memory serves me correctly, he got to the finals, and where he lost to Monroe, Willie Monroe, I believe.
Willie Monroe Jr. lost a unanimous decision in a 14 at Turning Stone.
Yeah, Turning Stone up there.
Yeah.
And it was part of the Boxino tournament. Artie Palua was, I believe, the promoter of it, and it was on ESPN. It was a decent tournament, and Brandon Adams, when he came into that tournament, it was his coming out party. Nobody had heard of Brandon Adams. He was just coming out really and getting the first taste of exposure and that level of boxing, and I liked him. I liked his physicality. To me, he was a piece of clay that could be molded into something. But if I remember, again, if my memory is right, he had a very short amateur career. So he didn't have like some of these guys have, the 100, the 150, the 200, the 250, whatever, amateur fights. He was a work in progress. His amateur, his experience was going to be gotten on the job. On the job experience, baby, in the pros. So it's a little different animal there.
Oh, yeah.
So what I liked about him was his natural instincts. He had natural instincts, good physicality. Again, I thought he was I'm not saying this in any way in a way where I hope people understand that, where I would be, knocking a guy, saying he was like talking down in any way, saying he was a piece of clay. I'm just making a point that he was like a good, pliable something to work with. Mm-hmm. That I looked at him, I said, wow, this guy with no amateur. See, when I evaluate a fighter, I want to know how many amateurs. I want to know everything. Everything. What his background is, what's happened to him in his life, everything.
Yeah.
What his disciplines have been, what they haven't been, his flaws, his strengths, from a character standpoint. And I remember thinking, well, this guy's got very little or almost no amateur fights. He's got there's no roof. Some of these guys, they have 300 amateur fights. There's a roof. They ain't getting much better. Mm-hmm. Coach used to say, Teddy, if you haven't learned how to fight after 300 amateur fights, you should go on the corner and start selling Italian ices.
Yeah,
really, I don't want to sell Italian ices on the corner. So you should know what you're doing by now. Is the point. And a lot of those guys, they don't get better. This guy I saw, he's going to get better. And there's something to work with. There's something to mold there. But after that tournament, he lost to a more experienced guy, a good boxer, Willie Monroe Jr. His uncle was a terrific middleweight from Philly back in the days when Philadelphia had all the great middleweights. Oh, my goodness. Boogaloo Watts, Willie the Worm Monroe. But there was a lot of good guys there. And so Brandon got exposed in that final fight for his lack of experience, the lack of amateur background, lack of experience where he hadn't developed enough to deal with that level of a boxer. Willie was a pretty good boxer, even though Triple G took him apart. That's Triple G.
Yeah.
But he was a real good boxer. So it was a matter of, it wasn't time yet.
Yeah.
And since then, I know he got knocked out. I know that Brandon Adams had a loss. He got stopped.
John Thompson
right?
in 2015.
And then he
so
had 4
years
wins in
ago.
a row after that.
That's right. He beat Shane Mosley Jr. to win that contender series.
So, yeah, you're right. He was the contender series. And so he got back, he got back a little bit. I don't know how far back he's gotten, or I don't know how far forward he's gotten. Like I said before, he wasn't ready yet. I don't know if he's ready now for Charlo. Having said everything, my breakdown of the fight is that again, I don't know if he's still a work in progress, but without that amateur background, all the things I just touched on, I still don't think, like, he wasn't ready for Willie Monroe then. Now I know that this is 5 years later. So obviously he should be more mature and better in certain areas. But I still don't know that he's ready for Charlo. I'm going to say that he's not. I'm going to say Charlo's going to do a little bit like Triple G did with Rolls, a little bit, and invite him to the big leagues by banging him in the body a little bit and disturbing him there a little bit, reminding him that maybe you're not ready. Maybe you're still a work in progress. Maybe that clay hasn't been molded yet, that Teddy Atlas talked about. Maybe you haven't gotten there to that place yet. And I'm going to say that Charlo, who is a good technical fighter, physically gifted fighter, undefeated fighter, all those things, I'm going to say Charlo's is going to win handily in that fight.
Yeah, I agree with you. The one thing I gave you bad info in the description of the fight earlier with Jermall. I get them confused sometimes too. Jermall, who's coming in, is 28-0. Jermall lost to Harrison. So
no problem.
But so the point I wanted to make there though is, so Brandon's coming off of a really tough unanimous decision win over Shane Mosley Jr., who I really like. He's a very nice kid. He lives down the street from me in LA. But Jermall Charlo versus Shane Mosley Jr., you're talking about a big giant step up in experience. Again, Shane didn't have a very deep amateur background as well.
And maybe talent too. I mean, I think Charlo was one of the more talented guys.
Yeah.
So, as far as just talent. But you're right. You make a beautiful point. I mean, Shane Mosley Jr., even though his father was the great fighter and, world champion in different weight classes, you would think maybe that he would have that amateur background, but he didn't.
No.
He didn't.
No.
I think he started late.
Very.
Yeah.
Relative to the rest of these guys. And Jermall Charlo, who's been fighting his whole life with his twin brother. I think they're twins. And, this looks to be a walkover for Charlo. But you never know. I mean.
Like I said, there was something there that I recognized, for me, that I recognized in Adams, that there was some physical ability and some innate ability at that level, but he still had a long ways to go, and I don't know that he got there.